need my. All right.
I don't know.
Everybody
I don't know
ready?
how to turn them on. Otherwise, I would.
Send it. Oh.
Oh yeah, the TVs aren't on.
Oh, are the TVs on for the public? No.
Yeah, we should.
Wait a minute.
That
I
one
don't know.
too. 'Cause I use that one.
Yeah, I use that one too sometimes.
What's the Wi-Fi password here? I wonder.
Something complicated that you don't know what to talk about.
Yeah,
You're gonna have a lot of
the
sneezing,
other part
or-
of my case.
Yeah. This might be a good place.
Yeah, it's too darn far. I don't even know what that is.
I don't know what it is either. Is it a speaker?
Speaker.
Okay, are we all set now?
Yep.
Put the mayor's in. All right, I'd like to call to order the August 7th, 2023 Bayport City Council meeting. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Matt, you want to call the roll?
Yep. Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Councilmember Dahl.
Here.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
Councilmember Hill.
Here.
Mayor Hansen.
Here. All right. Does anyone want to approve our agenda? Or make any changes?
I'll make a motion approving tonight's agenda.
Do we have to, we don't have to submit a change for opening the public hearing? Okay. All right, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, thanks Connie and Katie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, agenda's approved. Proclamations, commendations, petitions, and announcements. The July Recycling Award recipients are Megan and Joseph Schawbach at 311 Primrose Path. And now we'll move on to the open forum. This is a portion of the meeting to address the City Council on subjects that are not a part of the agenda. City Council may take action or reply at the time of the statement, or may give direction to staff regarding investigation of the comments expressed. Total of 15 minutes is allotted for public comment during the open forum. Anybody here that would like to address anything that's not on our agenda, come on up to the podium and state your name and your address.
My name's Riley Jackson. I am also a Bayport resident, but we recently bought the building, the old Weiler Scratch Kitchen building.
Oh.
We are looking to put Oleo in that space, and at this point we are hoping beginning of September we're ready for Bayport. But just want to introduce myself, say hello, and tell you that we are very excited to be part of our lovely little town of Bayport. So
Wonderful.
We're excited to have you.
In there?
yeah.
Oleo. Want to tell us a little bit about what Oleo
Yeah,
is?
so
Little commercial
Oleo, so we right now actually have been running a pop-up smaller version of Oleo out of Hudson, Wisconsin for about 6 months. And our concept at this point, it's Italian, so it's kind of like elevated Italian. We make all of our pastas fresh, sourdough focaccia, lots of fresh sourdough breads and everything like that. We have a chef who really thrives with Italian, and that's kind of been his claim to fame. So we're, at this point, it's just all kind of fresh scratch Italian, northern, southern, the whole gamut of Italian, but kind of.
Any ideas on like what your days and hours of operation might look like for people that might be? And
So
mainly
this,
me.
yeah, right. So at this point, we are looking to just be closed Tuesday. We'll be open every other day of the week. It'll be evenings on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Probably like 4 to 9 o'clock. And then Friday through Sunday. Friday will be about 5 to 9. Noon to 9. Saturday, noon to 9. Then probably just like a shortened lunch brunch, 11 to 4 on Sunday.
Okay.
So
What,
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
what about in terms of like on social media and stuff so people can follow you guys? And
Yeah, so
get
if
updates?
you, right now, we are still Oleo Hudson, but starting September 1st, it'll be Oleo Bayport. So that's, at this point, you can just look up OLIO, it's Oleo, and we have a full Instagram, Facebook, website, everything like that, so.
Perfect.
Oleo Bayport is our website right now, but we currently have 2, just because I want people to be able to find us over there right now, too. But,
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
Excited to have you. Thanks for coming.
yeah.
Yeah,
very
thank you
excited.
so
I
much.
can't believe
So-
I own the preschool in town. I've had
Oh.
so many parents say, "What's going in down there?"
Oh,
I
yeah.
go, I
Just-
don't know, but
yeah.
I've been meaning to call Matt and ask him, and I keep forgetting.
Really?
So now I can tell.
I think, is Matt,
Oh,
Matt Klein,
over
our
here.
city
Oh, okay,
administrator.
got it.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting to call him.
in the
Yeah.
Ask the
FCC.
appeals.
Yeah, I had somebody come by who also works at or runs or something that preschool right next to the, or, yeah.
That's
In the
me.
church,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and
That's
it,
her.
we were talking all about it. I was like, oh, we work. So we walked by today. And
Oh, okay.
to everybody.
Good.
So,
Yeah, well, thank
welcome.
you.
yeah,
Welcome.
thank you.
Yeah.
Good to meet everybody.
Yeah,
Nice meeting
great.
you.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was great. Anyone else want to come and chat with us at the podium?
Cheers.
Went down.
Okay. All right. So then we're on to the consent agenda, I guess. Are you okay, Ethan? Do you need to lift your chair? All right. Consider a resolution adopting items 1 through 13. The July 10th, 2023 City Council workshop minutes, July 10th, 2023 City Council regular meeting minutes, July payables and receipts, July building, plumbing, mechanical, and zoning permits report, temporary liquor license from Bayport American Legion for Derby Days on September 15th, 2023, lease extension with St. Croix Preparatory for the Nature Center, an appointment of Sergeant J. Jackson as interim chief for the police department, an appointment of Officer Aaron Slinger as interim sergeant for the police department, appointment of election judges for the 2023 special election, award the quote for removal of trees impacted by emerald ash borer, a lawful gambling application from Bayport American Legion for Derby Days on September 15th, and a special event application from the Cub/Boy Scout Troop 113 for pumpkin/wreath sales at the Village Green on 2 different dates, October 7th and November 18th, and an application for on-sale Sunday and off-sale liquor licenses from Oleo Hudson for 338 Fifth Avenue North. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving the consent agenda as it's been presented to us.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
John and Ethan, thank you. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. All right, so the consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to opening up the public hearing. Do I just say that? I'm gonna open up the public hearing and that's it? It's like magic? It's open?
You can announce what it's for, Mayor.
Okay. We are going to consider adoption of an interim ordinance prohibiting the operation of cannabis and hemp businesses. So if there's a public hearing, that means if there are people here that would like to talk about it, they can come up? Is that how it would work?
Madam Mayor.
It's not, my agenda is not clear.
Madam Mayor, either Christine or I can give like a short introduction. I can
That's
leave
how it
that
would
one
work.
up
Okay,
to
great.
Christine, and then we can ask for input from public.
All right, so the interim ordinance that's before the council tonight is an interim ordinance prohibiting cannabis businesses until January 2025 and prohibiting hemp businesses until August 2024. This is a prohibition on manufacturing and retail businesses as examples for cannabis and hemp, but this ordinance does not prohibit a person or entity licensed by the Department of Agriculture to grow or process industrial hemp. The council has the option to amend or repeal this interim ordinance at any time. And with that, I stand for questions.
All right. We did have a workshop meeting about this, so we probably won't have a lot of questions from the council Is there anything anyone wants to just bring up, comment on, discuss? Ethan, you're clearing your throat.
Well, I think, we talked about it, and it's not necessarily, it's prohibiting it for now, but it doesn't really matter because you can't get licenses anyways until January 25th, or not January 2025. So it was more about, I guess, I don't know.
Kind of getting our ducks in the row.
So we get all of our zoning things and everything else before we go ahead and open that up. And so I don't think when I first read it, I was like, wait, I thought we were doing something to allow it since it is legal, but there's not much we can do until the state starts giving licenses anyway. So it's just a way to keep that so we're not necessarily doing anything that would have changed much anyways with that one.
Exactly. Okay. Do we want to make a motion? Anyone want to make a motion already, or do we? Oh, we have to. We have to talk
So
first.
we'll have, at least in a lot of cities, there's a motion to open the public hearing, and then there's an official opening after the staff reports of the public hearing, and then if nobody comes forth, a motion to close the public hearing and an official closing of the public hearing.
Okay. So I need a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion opening the public hearing.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thanks, Katie. All right, so all in favor of opening the public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the public hearing is open. If anyone would like to talk about the interim ordinance prohibiting the operation of cannabis and hemp businesses, come on up. All right, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, Katie and John, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Okay, so now we can make a motion to actually adopt the ordinance. Anyone like to do that?
I move to adopt the interim ordinance prohibiting the operation of cannabis and hemp businesses as presented.
All right, a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thanks, Connie. All right, so I need a roll call vote.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. Right, so that passes. Do I then do a separate public hearing for number 2, since they're both public hearings? Is that,
Madam Mayor,
no?
we do not need public
Okay.
hearing for those two.
It says public hearings, plural, so I was confused. All right, so on to number 2. Under public hearings, consider adoption of amendments to Chapter 26, the environment of the Bayport City Code of Ordinances, to regulate the use of cannabis and hemp products in public places, and amendments to Chapter 6, alcoholic beverages of the Bayport City Code of Ordinances, to regulate cannabinoid products. So now,
So I feel like, I know Ethan already talked about it a little bit, but I feel it might be appropriate that we kind of mention we are trying to be as forward-thinking as possible in this and trying to allow businesses to operate in what they think is their best interest regarding this, and getting the ball rolling sooner than later on this.
yeah.
And in terms of the some of the public consumption things, we're trying to be kind of consistent with alcohol, THC-infused beverages, cigarettes, marijuana, things like that. So I don't know if anybody can say it more eloquently than I can, but
Yeah.
probably you, Mayor, anybody else up there.
No, I think your point is taken, that we don't want to be, we don't want to make it difficult for people to start selling something that is now legal, or using something that is now legal. But we had to do the moratorium, and point number 1, because we're just not ready, the state isn't ready. And now these other 2 motions will be to just help us figure out how, in the meantime, some of the businesses can still sell some things, right? Or this is just all about,
This is the
yeah, the
public.
sale is the second one. So first it's the where and what can be used in public now that there's this new law. And then hopefully we can get I know some of our businesses were eager to sell like THC infused beverages and things like that. So Christina helped us put together the language to fix our ordinances to do that. So you want to tell us more about what that's going to look like?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Uh-huh.
Mayor, members of the council, the city staff and city attorney have worked together to amend your current ordinances to extend the prohibition on intoxicating beverages to intoxicating cannabis and hemp products from being consumed in certain public places. And the city staff and city attorney have further taken council direction to draft an ordinance before you tonight prohibiting the smoking of cannabis products, hemp products in public places. And this ordinance permits law enforcement to charge those individuals using such products in public places with a petty misdemeanor. But this does not touch private property unless the owner prohibits the use on their own property. The second ordinance before you tonight is an amendment to Chapter 6 of your Alcoholic Beverages Ordinance, which regulates the sale of liquor to extend liquor licensees to sell cannabinoid products after registering with the city to do so. And with that, I stand for questions.
Okay. One question that we did talk about at our workshop was about the use of cannabis at like one of the businesses in town. If you were sitting on their patio and you were using cannabis, and you explained to us that it is up to the business owners whether they want to prohibit it or not, just to make that clear to the public and the business owners. We have one sitting here. So, because that's not public property. So, and then what else kind of came up that we might want to just reiterate here?
One of the things, I had a question, I didn't jump in during the workshop about that. So say business ABC, somebody goes in and lights up a joint and the owner says, no, I don't allow that here. Do they need a written policy? And then next week they can say, yeah, I decided it's okay now, or how does that work?
Sure, thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council, if a private business owner decides to prohibit the use on property of theirs, which would be considered generally accessible to the public, this law is very expansive. So it could be interpreted to include anywhere in the restaurant because the restaurant is generally accessible to the public. Then that individual could have a written policy. It could be day to day. There is no clarity from the legislature on what policy needs to be in place for a private property owner to prohibit it. But if they do choose to prohibit it and it is generally accessible to the public, then this ordinance would apply to the use on their private property that's not permitted.
So I have a clarification question on that. Thank you. That was a good question. So the way he worded it, they're walking into a business and lighting up. So I was assuming that because you can't smoke tobacco in businesses, that you also wouldn't be able to smoke marijuana.
That is correct. Madam Mayor, members of the council, the Clean Indoor Air Act does apply to these products.
Makes sense. Good.
An edible.
An edible, pretty easy to hide that.
Right.
But anyways, there's no rule on that, right? If you're gonna eat an edible or drink it.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, if an individual chooses to go in and use a hemp edible that isn't smoking, this ordinance does not touch on that. So while they might say you can't do that on our property, there is no legal recourse from a city ordinance perspective. That would be they want to trespass the individual. I don't know how they would choose to. It would be a management decision.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Is that clear?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that would be for both edibles and the THC infused seltzers, I'm assuming, or drinks.
I think they're
Yes.
kind of usually a collective
Yeah.
in most of the
Anything that you
language,
can
right?
consume.
If I may be helpful to go a little bit, would you like me to go in a little bit about where drinking is prohibited and permitted?
drinking of infused?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, so, Madam Mayor, members of the council, in this ordinance, we have a regulation about hemp edibles, which include beverages. While it's kind of confusing, cannabinoid products under current law and under the new law are called edible cannabinoid products. Your ordinance does not prohibit the consuming of an edible cannabinoid product or lower potency hemp edible that is not a beverage. So candy, gummies, this ordinance does not address that at all. What it does address is the drinking of intoxicating cannabis and hemp beverages in certain public places, which include the streets, the sidewalks, all public places, parking areas, except in a place where it's sold or served, and except in a designated picnic area within a public park. And that is just for your beverages. So gummies are not regulated by this. Beverages are prohibited in public places, just like liquor, on streets, sidewalks, parking areas, except where such product is sold or served under the liquor license, or designated picnic areas.
So similar to now, you could bring a beer to Lakeside Park. You could bring a THC-infused beverage to Lakeside Park. You can't walk down the street with it and go from Woody's to not just a bar.
Madam Mayor, that is correct.
Okay,
Perfect.
we got it. The other thing that I think we should touch on is that we were going to approach all of the current businesses that have alcohol sales licenses, right? And then have them opt into also having this, as you want to touch on how that's going to work and how we're going to proceed so that they
Mac, would
understand
you
what
like-
they can and can't sell?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that is correct reasoning. So our intent would be to come up with a checklist of what is allowed and what isn't allowed, and go to all of the establishments that have liquor license in town to try and determine whether they are want to sell essentially the edible cannabinoid products, or which that falls under the THC infused drinks. It will be a very simplified process. If they're interested, we'll probably have an application form. There will be no background check, as that's already been completed with their liquor license. And it would apply to the same as liquor license, essentially, to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, checking IDs and stuff like that. So it'd be same as liquor license checks, except it'd be specific for edible cannabinoids. There are regulations on the selling of edible cannabinoids. You have to have essentially a front counter, and I believe they have to be behind glass behind that counter. So whoever would qualify for that, or whoever is willing to make sure that that is occurring, we'd be open to having them offer that business in the city.
Great. Any other comments or questions for Christina or staff? No? All right, should we take a motion at a time here? We have two. Does anyone want to attempt the first
I'll
motion?
take the first one. I move to adopt an amendment to Chapter 26, Environment, to regulate the smoking and drinking of cannabis flower, cannabis products, lower potency hemp edibles, or hemp-derived consumer products in public places.
All right, do we have a second?
A second.
Ooh, pick one. All right, Katie, thanks. So John and Katie, we have to do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore. Aye. Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. All those in favor, say aye. Okay, great. So now, let's see, second motion. Does anyone want to?
Hit that one too.
All right, great.
I move to adopt an amendment to Chapter 6, Alcoholic Beverages, to regulate the sale of cannabinoid products.
Second it. All right, so we got John and Connie. Roll call.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore. Aye. Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. All right, so both of those motions passed. And now we are moving on to our unfinished business. We're going to consider amendments to Appendix E, the floodplain management of the Bayport City Code of Ordinances. And Sarah was going to present this item, but she's not here, so I assume Matt's going to do that.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to go too in depth on a background of this. This has been presented, I believe, 3 times at the council meetings. Mostly it's been held over to try and give the public some time to allow to read through the ordinance change and to provide comments back. With that said, we have received one comment from a resident who lives on the end of the Minnesota Alley down by 5th Avenue. They were very good comments regarding specific sections of the code, that specifically 12.2A and 12.2B. So those sections talk about the ability to rebuild your property to a certain level depending on a yearly outcome of flooding. So the current federal standard, which is what we have, allows over a 1-year period to make improvements to your property up to 50% year over year of the property value. So what that means is essentially if your property is in a flood and gets 49% damage in that flood that year, you're allowed to repair it. Then in another 2 years, if it gets another 49% damage, you're allowed to repair it. So this could happen over and over again as long as it's over any given year time period. The intent of the ordinance change for our ordinances is the DNR has specified that they want to change it to over the lifetime of the property. So the thinking is that if you're experiencing 50% damage to your property, that it might be a good idea to come into city standards as far as floodplain, potentially raise your house in order to stop this amount of claims over a year-to-year basis, essentially. Now, I will say that I do not know of any properties in the city of Bayport that have had this happen to them, just based on the building permits in those areas. With that said, the DNR does give leeway to this section of ordinance and does not require us to adopt this. So they are open to just about anything. Currently, we have year to year indicated in our ordinance. They would be open to every 5 years, every 10 years, every 20 years, rather than over the lifetime of the property. As I indicated, federal standards is a 1-year basis, and that's what we currently have in our ordinances. Is there any questions on that, which is probably very confusing?
Just make clarification when you talked about raising your house, not raising a house. Right?
Lifting, not
right.
raising. Yeah.
Yes,
good point.
essentially, the way to have no more claims essentially would be to come into compliance with essentially the 693 flood level. At that point, if there's nothing on your property that is below that, you would no longer technically need flood insurance to cover you at that point. So the intent would be here to try and get properties that have continual claims out of this in order to try and reduce the insurance costs for making these continuous claims. So I will say that it's likely that properties that have these continuous type claims likely are paying more and more and more for their flood insurance. So at some point, they could potentially either not be covered by insurer, or the insurer could potentially force them to come into compliance. So there's two thinkings about this, right? One is that the city wants to help these properties owners out by making sure that parcels that have these continuous claims, rather than hurting everybody else in the area on flood insurance, that we want these people to come into compliance, essentially. The 12.2B, this one is somewhat the same. So this one is more of the repetitive loss section. And so you have to, it cites the definition of repetitive loss. Let me bring that up.
There's a lot of papers, a lot of pages, so.
I know, and I don't seem to have the right ones here. Let's see. Oh, here we go, repetitive loss. So this is a new definition in the revised version that is currently not in our city ordinance. So this is something we don't necessarily have to add. So repetitive loss is flood-related damages sustained by a structure on two separate occasions during a 10-year period for which the cost of repairs at the time of each such flood event on the average equals or exceeds 25% of the market value of the structure before the damage occurred. Essentially, what that is getting at is the same thing as the 50% thing. So if they're indicating that you are also experiencing multiple lower cost floods that you need to cover, again, we're hoping that instead of keeping on repairing these and making claims, and likely increasing your insurance premium, that you come into compliance again with city standards in order to make, to reach the 693 level, essentially out of the floodplain. Again, with this definition, I still do not know of any properties in the city of Bayport, based on building permits, that has fallen under this in the last 6 years that I've been to. And we've experienced 2 floods, now not significant floods, but 2 fairly big floods in the last 6 years. So again, this one does not necessarily have to be incorporated into this, this ordinance change. But it's an option.
I mean, the rationale is to, prevent continual claims and how it affects the flood insurance as a whole, right?
So there are contingencies, and I know we have a couple of people in the audience who have talked about this, for people who can't necessarily afford some of this stuff. I do know that FEMA has programs in order to help you raise certain structures. I also know that there's a variance within this ordinance that allows for financial hardship on the inability to pay for something such as lifting your house, essentially. So
I think there's somewhere, I'm not sure where, but that some sort of happy medium where after a certain period of time, you should be required to bring it up to our standards.
What is that certain period of
Right.
time?
Yeah, so the question becomes, I guess there's a couple of things. And then I'll talk about one of the residents who's actually here tonight, about where that section helps her property. The question becomes, do we want the 50% rule over the lifetime of the property, that's pretty significant. The one resident who did speak about it was worried that that's a long period of time, and given the different values associated with it, how does that work, right? I will say that, so if you have a parcel on your property and you make improvements to it, it's likely the city's not going to allow improvements that occur below the flood level at this point, right? So any improvements would not necessarily count against your 50%. That 50% is only geared towards what would get damaged. So a lot of the properties that we have that I can think of along the Minnesota Alley a majority are like tuck under garages that don't necessarily have finished basements and stuff like that. And so they're currently used for stuff that we would potentially allow in these locations, which would be unfinished space.
So let's just give an example, and maybe you can help me with this. So there's a flood and someone has 52% of the value of their home in damages and they have to fix it. And then the next year, the same thing happens and they have to fix the same thing again, and now it's 55% of the value of their home. Right now, they can do that? Like they can just keep perpetually reinvesting that money into the house without actually changing it to stop it from getting damaged every time it floods?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that is correct. So our current ordinance reads from year to year. So as long as it's a year apart, yes.
Okay. And so the suggestion from staff, I don't know, where, do you guys have where you think it should land?
We don't necessarily, okay. City staff does not necessarily have a suggestion. We somewhat agree that the lifetime of the property is definitely a very long time. But then what do you make it? You could very well have, as an example, the 65 and 69 flood was 694 in 65 and 692 in 69. And so both of those count as the 100-year flood, which are very major floods. Now, it took all the way until 2001 to have another one all the way up to 692, which is the 100-year flood. So it would be a guessing game on what right number of years there would be. At a minimum, I would think 10 years would be relevant. I mean, if you experience the need to rebuild your property twice over a 10-year period at that much, I mean, we're talking 50% of the value of your house, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a $300,000 house, you would have to put $150,000 into it. That's significant repairs that you would want to make sure potentially won't happen again, right? Mm-hmm. And my guess would be that the insurance company would not want to pay out that over multiple years, especially mm-hmm. FEMA related. So
that would be difficult for the city to track too, I would think. Like you'd have to know that, 10 years ago they had.
So a lot of this might fall back on the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. I don't think the city staff will be actively doing this. A lot of this is geared towards trying to keep insurance premiums well worth it for those major floods that occur, mm-hmm. And for circumstances that some of these smaller floods don't necessarily require you to have that type of insurance.
So I guess that makes me think, like, well, why isn't it just your insurance policy is keeping you from doing these things, right? Why do we have to have something?
Yes, that definitely plays a role. One of the things that we didn't get into in this is actually talking to insurance companies and seeing what their regulations are and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. My guess is they play just as big a role on what they will and won't repair, depending on what flood insurance you have, as this city ordinance.
Yeah, I guess for a couple reasons, because you also mentioned that we haven't really had any claims in the floodplain. Well, that we know of. We don't correct. Think people are really having these issues, and the fact that I feel like the insurance companies should be figuring out when that makes sense for them to continue to let them, that, I'm wondering if we need this at all, if it's an optional thing.
I will say that I did talk to attorney Eric Larson about this, and he had some good insight. He did say that insurance companies are starting to look at city ordinances to look and determine some of these things and what they are requiring.
Okay.
And that does have some impact on the premium that is being offered to some of these property owners. So if you have lax requirements, then it's entirely possible that your premiums could go higher. So
Okay.
And ostensibly your neighbors.
Oh, yeah, everybody.
absolutely.
Affects everybody.
This is a tough one, right?
It is.
A lot of it's like your individual thinking, but the ordinance in the Minnesota DNR is not thinking about this individually, right? They're thinking about this as a whole for the whole St. Croix Valley, even the Mississippi River Valley, rather than individual property owners. So in order to keep premiums down as a whole, and to tell you the truth, keep insurance companies providing flood insurance. I mean, it's happened in Florida where flood insurance, like insurance companies are like scattering from Florida because of all the flooding and the hurricanes down there. And so it's hard to get. Whereas here, we still have insurance companies who are willing to insure these people, but the more claims they make, the less likely that may happen. So
That's how I think our role in this, and
Yep.
having some sort of reasonable time frame. That 10 years was sort of the number that was in my head. I'll just throw that out there. I don't know where everybody else is at.
Anyone else have any questions or input?
I was leaning between the 5 and 10 years. I guess that, after reading the gentleman's
Yeah.
letter and stuff. I'm not set on either. So I guess I would go either way.
Katie, Ethan, any thoughts? And I had to talk to Matt for like 25, 30 minutes earlier again today to get this straight in my head because it's confusing. So if you have questions, don't be embarrassed because it is like still a little.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
So if you do intend to change that, all I will need to know is what you intend to put it at, and we can make that change very easily. I will speak to the other property owner here who's here tonight. One of the reasons that we actually wanted to update this ordinance is they actually made it easier. The new ordinance makes it easier to install items like accessory structures in the floodplain. So our old ordinance had a limit of 500 square feet, which is not big enough for a 2-stall garage, essentially. And it also required 15 feet of fill everywhere around an accessory structure. Now, if you don't have a big enough lot, that potentially requires you to have fill on somebody else's property, which can be pretty prohibitive. So the new ordinance essentially increases the size of an accessory structure allowed in the floodplain to 576 square feet, which is a 24 by 24 normal 2-stall garage. And then it also gives alternatives to having that fill around it. Essentially, you can have a slightly lower finished floor elevation if you have flood-proof materials such as concrete or similar that builds up the level to the 693 level. In fact, one of the property owners who was hoping to do that earlier this year, but had to wait for this ordinance to go through, is actually here tonight. So we're hoping to get that passed for her.
Sorry that we've been delaying this for you. But at least we're doing it.
Been good.
I know, but at least we're getting it done so that you can do what you need to do, right? I mean, it's taking longer than
It
it,
makes it so much easier because
yeah.
we live in the adjoining property
and we've owned this property for.
Do you want to, if you're going to talk, just so everyone that's watching can hear you, otherwise it's not.
I don't want them to hear me.
Oh, you can come on up. I know, just because it's just a small group here,
Yeah.
you might as well share your thoughts. Tell us your name and your address.
Karen McLeod, I live at 321 3rd Street South.
Okay,
Okay. We've lived there for 40 years, over 40 years. And we also own the adjoining property where we want to put the garage. It's never had a garage there. I think probably 50 years ago it had a shed back there. And these are all older houses down at that end of town. But by going by last year's regulations, it would make us move it so far up in the yard. It was very close to our property line, and it shrinks the garage down even more because you're using all that for driveway.
yeah,
And then we lose the backyard on that property.
okay. So you think, I mean, the changes are good for you, which is,
Anything will help, right, Matt?
Yep.
yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, well, I
Because
appreciate
he's been trying
your-
to deal with this for over a year. And we
Yeah,
heard that the state was doing this change, so we decided in October last year to wait for you to amend it this spring.
okay. And do you have any concerns about the rest of this ordinance that we should be
I
thinking
grew up
about?
down there. I mean, most of the places
okay.
I grew up at 563 Minnesota Street. So, but my parents did raise the house, lifted it, and moved it closer to the highway.
Okay,
Along with my uncle, they also did it to their house for the 65. And then in 69, it didn't flood. It came up to the backyard, but it didn't flood into our home. In 65, it was up at the floorboards, and we had to leave the house.
okay.
And none of those are new houses down there. They're
No.
all older, and I don't know of anybody that is allowed by their insurance to have a finished basement that's covered. So they're risking it by using it as closed, as finished space.
Yeah, yeah,
It would be if something happened, a house burnt down or was tore down, and then you have to put a new home in.
yeah. That's good to have your perspective. I
You know,
appreciate that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to say yes.
Okay, thank you. I think we just have to nail down the timing of the, what's it called?
The substantial improvement.
Substantial, yeah. What do we think, 10 years? Is
I
that,
like the 10 years.
okay? Does someone want to how do we make that motion?
Yeah.
That's the confusing, nobody wants to do it because they don't know how to make it.
Madam Mayor, I think you just
Can you just
make the
say-
motion as is and then say as amended at the meeting.
As discussed at the meeting? Okay.
All right. I'll move to adopt amendments to Appendix E floodplain management of the Bayport City Code of Ordinances and summary for publication with the addition of the amendments that we have discussed this evening.
Does
I'll
anyone
second it.
All right, thanks, Connie. All right, roll call.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore. Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. All right, so that's passed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Now my car can get in the winter.
Oh,
It was a long, cold winter.
lots of snow. Okay, so now on to new business. Consider awarding a bid for sanitary sewer cleaning and televising project and our new Public Works Director, Simon Worth.
Madam Mayor,
What?
let me interfere first.
Oh,
Before you call on Simon,
Okay.
The memo from SEH should have been on your
Oh, yeah.
thing, so you can reference that as far as who the low contractor was.
Okay.
So with that, I'll pass it on to Simon.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, staff has recently been collaborating with the city engineer on bidding documentation for sewer cleaning and televising project. It is done once every 3 years per the recommendation of the League of Minnesota Cities, and we are following that recommendation. We did put out for bid. We had a good turnout, five returns, and we are recommending that the city awards the lowest responsible contractor, which is Pipe Services, the contract, which after execution of that contract will begin here hopefully this fall.
all right. Does anyone have any questions for Simon or comments? Anything? Pretty straightforward, right? How about a motion then?
Madam Mayor,
What?
can
trying to move it
you,
along.
when you do the motion, can you specify that a not to exceed price?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then also include that city staff is authorized to utilize the alternate bid section of the bidding. So city staff will be deciding whether to do the alternate bid or not.
So you're gonna, the not to not exceed is the total bid.
The total, the not to exceed will be the 97,431.74, yes, and then just authorize city staff to authorize the alternate bid option.
How about someone just says, so moved?
Oh,
That works, doesn't it, Christina?
I'll make that motion then.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, thanks, John and Katie. We do need a roll call vote.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. All right, so that's approved. Fun, sewer cleaning and televising. Okay, so now we're gonna consider authorization for SEH to complete survey work, design and bid services for the 4th Avenue North Street Improvement Project. And Matt's gonna present this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. City council and city staff did discuss this at the workshop today, and consensus was that we would work with Anderson and move forward potentially with a project here on 4th Avenue North in 2024. That starts with SEH performing some survey work along with design and bid services for that area. Essentially, once you do the survey work, then you can put the plans on the paper, and we will also work with Anderson Windows to determine if there are any needs above and beyond what a normal street project would entail. The current rating of that street is a 4 out of 10 scale, and it has a significant crown. The street is also used significantly by Anderson employees to cross, and also by Bayport residents and non-residents as a boat landing, and it is in severe need of repair. So at this point, staff is recommending moving forward to adopt a motion authorizing SEH to complete the survey work, design and bid services for the potential 4th Avenue Street Improvement Project with a not to exceed amount of $44,151.
So moved.
We're moving right along here. All right.
We did talk about
We
this
did
stuff,
talk
so
about
it
it.
wasn't-
We had talked about it at our workshop. I just wanted to, thanks for the motion. I just wanted to clarify for those who don't have the packet and can't see the map, that it goes from Main Street north on 4th Avenue all the way to the boat landing. That's the section we're talking about. And about half of it's gonna be totally reconstructed, and closest part to the landing would just be mill and overlay. And we're gonna get this bid from SEH in order to do that. That's the first step. So just that tiny bit of background. So we have a motion to authorize SEH to complete the survey work.
Second.
And we have a second. Thanks, John and Ethan. A roll call vote then, Matt?
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. All right. We can move on to our city council liaison reports. I think Ethan's fallen asleep, so we'll make him go first. No?
Well, we didn't meet. So
Oh, nothing to say. So
Nothing
he's
to
just
say
gonna
here.
continue to fall asleep. Okay. All right, so no cable commission report. Connie, you wanna tell us about the library?
Well, the library board did meet. I tried to meet via whatever because of my knee. Didn't work so well. But I talked to Joan. The summer programs have been very, very well attended. And in fact, we've made it over there quite a few times. And so she was happy about that. And she added an extra program, a movie day on the 17th, so she just wanted that to be announced. And that'll be at 2:00. And then they'll meet again in 2 weeks.
Nice. Yeah, I thought her letter was, things sound great. She has 275 kids signed up for the Summer Star Explorers reading program.
And
I mean,
had
that's a lot of
art.
kids.
Yeah, they had art, and then they had a dance. I call it was not a dance party. It was a dance party, but it was a free-for-all run around the building party.
Yeah.
Knock each other over, but they had a ball, so that's
Yeah,
what counted.
and
There was about 50 kids at that, so.
And the rock snake is really
Yeah.
cute outside the front of the library. If you haven't seen it yet, it goes along the sidewalk on the north side of the entryway. It's really
Yeah.
cute.
A couple of
So,
the kids didn't want to leave their rocks behind, though. So
Oh,
it
they
was
painted them. They're like, no, I don't want
Yeah.
it. So,
But the programs went really well.
yeah, great. Jill's been doing a great job. So
Yes,
thank
she
you.
does.
John, did you?
Um,
No, I
the
didn't. Did
mayor-
you? I was supposed to go for John and it was the day we had sergeant interviews and I was tired.
But you and I went to,
That, we did that, yeah.
what was the,
It was
what
called
was the name
the
of it?
St. Croix River Workshop on the Water by the Washington Conservation District.
so that was I was bummed out that I've not gone to this before. Very informative presentation, super engaging speakers, just about kind of what goes on along the river and all these different efforts all over the St. Croix Valley. I always want to say Lake Elmo. Lily Lake has been delisted as a
Impaired waters.
impaired
Mhm.
water, not source, but an impaired body of water. So we heard from those folks. We heard from a retired DNR. He wasn't
Yeah,
a
he worked for like
commissioner, but-
almost every state agency that deals with water. I think he's worked with them, but he was very informative. You're right.
So that's
Yeah.
really nothing specific as it relates to Bayport, but something I want to try and attend next year. if
Yeah.
they have
Yeah,
it. So-
I suggested, well, I know it's not my turn to talk, it's your turn for
No.
your
Go
liaison
ahead. I
reports,
mean,
but
you
I
were
was
there
there
too,
too, and
so.
I think one of the big takeaways is that they should be doing something similar for those who live on the river, so they understand the best ways to have their yards work with the water and filter it and
Just
all of that.
one of the great examples was they showed a chart and they showed, most people want to have their grass kind of end right at the waterway, and grass has about this much of a root system under it, and some of the native plantings they showed the root
Were like-
systems are like feet deep, and
Yeah.
how much more effective that is at controlling erosion naturally, and so really interesting stuff. And I would encourage anybody that's interested in those things and just jump on the websites and check that stuff out. I think it's fascinating.
What was the website?
You can go on the DNR, Middle St. Croix.
This was actually put on by the Washington Conservation District. I follow Angie Hong on Instagram or Facebook. If I were you, she's like the resource person for all of that, like that communications, and she's really helpful about telling you when things are happening. So yeah. All right, thanks. Did you have anything else? We didn't. Neither one of you. Did you get any minutes or anything from the watershed
not.
meeting? Okay. All right, Katie.
Hello. For BCAL, their meeting, it went pretty fast because then they split up in their own little groups to talk about Derby Days stuff and all their little committees on Derby Days, because that's the next thing. Farmers market's going good, I know. They were talking about pine or picnic tables up there. Did you guys bring some up maybe for the farmers market now already?
Yep.
Okay. And then for Derby Days, St. Charles Church is going to be collecting tennis shoes. So it's used tennis shoes that they collect, and they either donate the tennis shoes that can be used, or you take the rubber and all the other stuff and you reuse already wrecked ones.
So only tennis shoes.
It's only tennis shoes, yeah.
And what day are they doing that? Saturday?
They're doing
or
that
Friday during the dance? Okay.
Saturday. during
The duck
the
derby?
duck derby, but it might have changed from, I mean, I'll know more because
Yeah,
the
we'll
meeting's
have-
in like 2 days.
Yeah, we'll have a better like calendar
Understanding,
schedule
yeah.
Well,
eventually too.
I'm involved with that part, but I think it is just, it's gonna be Saturday, and then they're gonna have a cookie booth to give.
Oh, the cookies again? Oh, they had the cookies last year. People loved
Yeah,
them.
and
Okay.
the sneakers are going, the ones that are, it is only tennis shoes they want.
Yeah.
Can be tied, can be Velcro, but they're going, like, being donated to a third world country or whatever can't, like if they get some shoes that are really
Rugged.
not walkable, they'll use them and they'll get them, turn them into the recycling. They've got a kind of a program with the recycling company.
Great. So remember to bring your shoes when you come to watch the
Yeah,
duck
I've had a
race.
bin out at the daycare. Got a lot of little kids tennis
so
shoes.
they
Oh,
can
yeah,
drop
that's
them
a
off.
good idea.
Yeah, I have them at, I've got a bin at the daycare.
Or
And
bring 'em to
the church has one too.
Pony
But,
preschool.
yeah, we got a lot of tiny ones there.
Yeah.
I mean, we take any size.
Yeah, but they're only
What I
20.
got was there. I'm getting the little ones.
All right. Well, thanks for clarifying that,
Yeah.
Connie. Okay, and then I, as usual, had a busy month. On the 12th, I met with John Hall and Rick Wyrock. Is that how you say his last name? They're both Baytown Township board members. I wanted to just chat with them about their thoughts on the school relocation and some just, community outreach to them because I wanted them to know that we're open to talking about all of these things that are going on between our two cities. And we have that, there was a pending annexation at the time, now that's being dropped, but, so I just wanted to meet them, and I know that they were interested. John had come to the public forum about the school relocation, so I just kind of wanted to connect with him. And he's also the chair of their board. I did the interim sergeant interviews on the 13th, and took the whole day, and it was great. I got to learn a lot more about many of our current police officers, and I was so impressed. It was great, and I think you heard the outcome of that if you had listened to the beginning of the meeting. We have interim sergeant Slinger was the one who was selected unanimously by our panel, and we actually had someone, the chief from Crystal, where Adam Bell went, so she helped with the interviews as well, so we had an outside perspective, and that was helpful. On the 16th, I went and represented Bayport in the Lumberjack Days Parade as a chamber member. I helped them set up the parade, and then I also marched in it. So I went to the WDGY 100-year ribbon cutting. Did you know that WDGY is right down in Lakeland? And that the owner lives on the point? Me neither. Learned a lot that day. And it's WDGY is because it was like Dr. Gregory something, like Dr. Greg Young or something. That's what the DGY. Yeah. See, it's fun to go to those things. Attend ribbon cuttings if you can. I also had a quick chat with Ashley and Ethan Bell. Ethan came to our meeting last week to do similar to what we have. I already forgot her first name. Riley came today to talk about how they just purchased not just a bar and cafe. So I went and just chatted with them, and I'd like to chat with you sometime too. Just to kind of see how it's gone, with the city, and if they have questions or suggestions or anything. And so that was fun to meet with them. And did the St. Croix River workshop on the 25th. Had a nice, let's call it an exit interview with Chief Eastman. She just wanted to chat on the 26th. Also talked with Paul Spilseth from People's Congregational Church on the 26th. He's the leadership team moderator. Just to kind of keep that conversation going based on the school relocation that might go into Barker's, just to kind of see what they're thinking on their perspective too. So I'm trying to just stay in touch with everybody. Also had a conversation with Angelique McDonald from Senator Housley's office, because they have been getting some Bayport residents reaching out to them about the proposed amendment to the, purchase agreement, deed, whatever, for the Barker's Alps Park, the language that was changed. And so I had a conversation with her because she was saying some things that weren't clear and then they were being posted online. So we cleared that up. We're hoping to clear it up. I could talk to Senator Housley then again a couple days after that. And she's supposed to be writing a statement to clarify all that, and I'll get that out on Facebook as soon as I receive it. And then August 1st was Night to Unite, and I think our new interim chief did a great job and his staff. So it was a little drizzly, but we all we all had a good time, and yeah, it was fun to see everyone. I actually hung out in the tent with all the city staff and the PD, and it was fun handing out raffle tickets and seeing everyone. I feel like the turnout isn't quite like it was when my kids were young, and I don't know if people are having their own individual things or if there's just so many city things going on, but it would be nice to get more people out there. It's a great event. There's free food and information. They had the buses and this like a new vehicle where they transport the prisoners in it, and so that was really interesting. I'd never been inside one of those, so they park right here at the fire station, so they came down. And then of course I had many other engagements with residents that have questions a lot because of the school relocation topic and other things. So was busy, but I love it. It's all great. So I think that's it for council liaison, and then move on to the staff and city administrator reports. Matt, what you got?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief Eisinger is not here, but he did note that an update to his memo, I believe the calls for July ended up being about 132, which would be the most ever calls that they've gone on a month.
Really?
So I know that they've been having a lot of crashes lately on I-94, some significant ones, and that's about all he had for that. Police, interim Chief Jackson.
Mayor, council members, was a busy month for us. I'm going to touch on a few things that were from last month as well because it got skipped over due to time last time. The first thing is we had our Memorial Day parade with the entire department. That went well. Canine Officer Mays is now part of the group and done with training, although training will continue to go every week. So Officer Cornell is doing well with that after graduating from the canine school. We've had a few residents reach out to us about the crosswalk violations. We're attempting to do what we can with that. Obviously, it's been very serious. We've done a few stings using officers to try and, catch people violating the crosswalk violations. So that will continue to be ongoing. As the mayor mentioned, on July 13th, we had the interim sergeant process with the mayor, city administrator Klein. We had Chief Eastman and Chief Revering from Crystal Police Department, myself, and I will say that the process, as the mayor can attest to, was quite involved. And everybody that was on the panel, definitely by the end of the process was worn out. So I can't even imagine what the people that actually had to do it went through, but I went through a similar process. So as the mayor pointed out, it was unanimously recommended that Officer Slinger receive that promotion. So we welcome his input moving forward and his assistance. July 27th, we did our mandatory use of force training, which is for all staff. July 28th was Chief Eastman is taking her paid time off before her retirement. I will be taking her place in doing the CLEO responsibilities. That's Chief Law Enforcement Officer. Her official retirement date is not until September 15th, so she will be responding to emails. So if you still reach out to her, I'm sure she will get back to you. I speak with her not quite daily, but pretty close to. And then bring us to safety camp, which was July 31st and August 1st. We had 22 kids. We had some youth volunteers. We thank them for helping us, along with Sue Davis, who also helped us. It was invaluable to us. Special thank you to Officer Lepowski for organizing both of the events of Safety Camp and National Night Out. She puts a lot of work into it, and we do appreciate that, along with the rest of the staff that were there with kids. And then we also had our Night to Unite. I'd like to thank the mayor for volunteering to help us out in the police booth, as you have done a couple years. Like she said, we did get rained on. That wasn't so fun. It was great and cooled us off for a little bit, but then got rather uncomfortable. The crowds were a little lower. We're going to work on that for next year.
Yeah.
I, like you, do remember the old crowds. So hopefully maybe it's just a word of mouth thing, or we got to spread the word, and we're also looking to get more vendors and also maybe receive some more donations from people that might be interested in, donating a bike or some raffle things, or different businesses in town can donate some gift cards so we can get them some businesses too. But it was a nice event. I had many people come and congratulate me on my new position. Was able to talk to quite a few people. My staff did great, organizing and keeping everything moving along. The raffle went very well with the lower crowds. We had a lot of people that got some very nice things. So
Yeah.
it worked out for a lot of people. Upcoming things, we have our tactical shoot that we do with Oak Park Heights Police Departments on both August 23rd and September 14th. So those are coming up quickly. And then the 15th and 16th, we have Derby Days with the reserves attending and some of our officers. I'm also planning on being there for the Derby Days too. So I will stand for questions.
Just with the Night U tonight, because I was down there for a little while, I thought maybe it was the rain kept them away, but does Inspiration do their own thing up there too? Neighborhood
I
thing?
don't think so. That would be who we need to tap into. That's where
Well,
the
because I
young
know
kids
a
are.
few years back they did something up there. They had a neighborhood thing, so I was wondering if they were still doing that. That's
a good question.
I don't think they.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that we received any requests, because normally we would. There was an intern with Washington County Investigations that was going to try and hold an event at Croydale, but I think there was some miscommunication there, because Croydale does come down and participate in our events.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think that was the only other thing that I was aware of.
Okay, I was just curious because, like I said, I know the rain kind of
Yeah, and it was
damper on
definitely,
it, but
I think would have made a few people stop and think, I don't think I want to go down there, because it looked a little worse than it ended up being. But
Yeah.
we'll work on our outreach a little bit more next year, and hopefully we can get some more people interested and get some more vendors and some more people donating some things for us. So,
Yeah,
Thanks,
that'd be
Jay.
great. Yeah, thanks.
any
It
other
was fun.
questions?
Thank you for safety camp too. My kids love it. It's the highlight of their summer. They do wish it was more than just 2 days.
Really?
They're like, we want to stay there all week, Mom. I'm like, no, I don't do
You do too,
sleepover
maybe.
camp. Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, there is only so many times you can see the snakes, the really
That's
cool
what I
things,
think.
the raptor
There's
center
only
when they're
so many
down.
things
You
you
know, we
can
definitely
do
have
all
some
day.
more popular things than.
It was
some
funny, all the
educational.
pictures on Facebook that you guys I don't know if the PD posted them or what, but they were all about the snakes.
Oh,
It's like, did you guys do anything else other than hold snakes? Because that must have been the most exciting part.
and me being not a snake person, I'm glad I wasn't there yet for that. So I feel like there might have been a certain amount of peer pressure for me to.
Oh, there would have been.
Yeah, for sure. So
I think we need to get the helicopter back.
that was
For the-
talked about as well. So that is on our list of things to try, but obviously
That was my
there's-
husband's highlight of the night to night all the time, so.
and there's a huge demand for it, and with costs increasing. States,
Yeah, I
and
know,
that.
I-
But we
I
have some
get
different
it.
ideas that we're going to look into that I've talked over with staff. So we're kind of making our list for next year.
Yeah,
We're not buying you a helicopter.
we're not gonna buy.
You haven't gotten my proposal yet. It's really, really good.
He's got all kinds of grants
might
for
have
it.
good persuasion.
I look
All
forward to
right,
meeting
thank
the pooch,
you,
though.
interim chief.
Thank you.
I'll call you
Thank
IC.
you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right.
Public Works Director Simon.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this month, this past month has been trees, and more trees again. This whole year has been dominated by trees in a bad way, unfortunately. Save a Tree has been contracted to continue to remove the limbs that are still hanging that our public works staff was unable to remove. As you can imagine, they're also inundated with other communities, private homeowners, things like that. And there just are so many tree contractors that we're able to use. But we do have priority. So they have been slowly but surely making their way down the list that was created. Having said that, we had a storm just recently that came through that we also had to clean up after, and we added more trees to Save a Trees list. And actually BJ Haynes' list to clean up. Or no, it was Save a Tree. Sorry. So many tree contractors that I've been dealing with. So there are trees that we are working on removing, limbs that we need to remove. With that being said, we are working on a 1-to-1 replacement plan. Any tree that is removed we're trying to replace, and that goes with the emerald ash borer trees that have been identified that are not being treated, that are starting to die away. We have 25 to 30, or as budget allows, per year that we will be removing. I would say average cost per tree is probably around $1,000 with the removal, the stump grinding, the chip removal, black dirt replacement. Our staff is helping when we can to replace, once the chips are removed, to put black dirt, grass, things like that. We're going to be waiting to plant grass till the fall. But we did get a successful, we have just this meeting awarded the newest contract to BJ Haynes to remove the ash trees that will be coming down this fall. With that being said, next meeting we will have hopefully some interested bidders for the tree replacement. So we are working on that. We have a pretty good variety. That's going to be the key in all of this, is variety. We don't want to replace all of the ash trees with a tree that could potentially be taken out by some other horrible disease in the future and be left in the same place that we're in now. So that is consumed a big majority of most people's work this year. Street maintenance, we have some proposals out for, we have requests for quotes out for spray patching of some of our streets. Spray patching is kind of a sticky emulsion that will, it's a layer, not pothole filling, but it's kind of a layer that will seal the current road that may be having alligator cracking. It's a preventative maintenance. It will hopefully stop potholes from forming, kick our maintenance overall, larger maintenance down the road, pun intended, I guess, for a little while. So we're waiting on some bids for that. We'll hopefully have that for the next meeting as well for approval, and then we can get going on having that work started this fall as well. We do continue the lead service line inventory that has been required by the I believe that is the federal government, the MPCA. We are trying to slowly but surely, it is not necessarily an intrusive process, but our staff is required to go inside of the homes and look at the service line that enters the home to determine what type of material is being used for the water line coming from the street to the home. And at this point in time, we are just working to create an inventory of what we have. And once we have come to a conclusion of what the majority of the materials that are used, if there are unsafe materials, we will come up with a plan to deal with the replacement of those lines. So we continue to do that. The Centennial Pavilion, we are moving forward with sending out requests for quotes to construction companies here just today. So hopefully we do have a deadline of the week of August 22nd for the return of those quotes. Hopefully we should have something for you by the next council meeting, competitive quotes from the construction companies that we've reached out to, with the anticipation that we have that project completed by the Christmas tree lighting at Village Green. We have set a date for December 1st to have that project completed. So we will hope for the best on that. Hopefully we can get some interested parties giving us quotes for that. Last but not least, it has been raining a little bit more lately, so that's a good thing. But the Minnesota DNR did put the St. Croix watershed in the drought warning phase, which is essentially a warning that let's not use as much water as we have been in watering our grass and things like that. We just really need to be conscious about how much water we're using and pulling out of the aquifer at this point. I'm seeing numbers over 700,000 gallons a day that we are producing. And I would say in the winter, on average, 150,000 gallons. So they recommend being 50% above that would be roughly what we should hopefully shoot for, being in just to minimize the impact that we're having. We're way above that. So I would almost put out a plea to people to at least try to minimize the amount that they're irrigating. Certainly that is a huge factor in this spike in consumption for water. Recognize the even odd days. Try to just turn off the sprinklers and maintain or rely on the rain that we're starting to get. Grass has been around for 100 million years. If it dies, it will come back. So that with that being said, not only does it strain the aquifers below us, but the equipment above and what we use. So it's very expensive. We have chemicals that we put into the system that, chlorine just for Minnesota Department of Health standards that we need to comply with. So those chemicals are very expensive. It's very expensive on the equipment that we have, the well pumps. It's just going to raise the price of the maintenance down the road. So with that, are there any questions?
Very good point. I don't even think about that. How more water you pump, the faster you're wearing down your mechanisms, right? So good point.
I think maybe two things to take from Simon's words, maybe an email blast or something on social media to get,
about
Even using the numbers.
Let's be good citizens and stewards of, yeah.
Yeah, good point, Katie. Point out.
Yeah,
we're
like-
using 700,000 gallons versus what we
During
should
the
be
winter.
using. I think we could dial it back. Yeah, like pointing out the numbers.
Yeah.
And put it in a Facebook post. I'll share it on Bayport Neighborhood. I'm sure any one of us would. So.
And then another thing, I know we had one particular instance of just a reminder to people that Simon's talking about trees on public property. If you look around in town, there are a lot of, I found one in my neighborhood recently that is a completely dead 30-foot spruce tree that, and it's very near utility lines. So just kind of another good neighbor thing. You're responsible for your own trees, and you could be, prevent a power outage by having it removed.
I was gonna.
Mayor.
Did you have something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
to encompass more of the dead tree issue. So we are likely to see that increase exponentially here with emerald ash borer. We're definitely seeing it increase more and more. We've had a couple circumstances where people have called in and said, well, my neighbor's tree's dead and we're worried about it as a safety hazard. So as public works staff and police staff drive around, it's likely that will be some focused code enforcement from us because of the safety hazard issue. And so don't be too surprised if you have a dead ash tree in your yard that you will likely get a letter indicating that you have X amount of time to have that removed, as it is considered a nuisance for the city of Bayport. So.
Be careful about how much time you give them, because I'm having a really hard time getting someone to come and take a dead tree down in my yard because they're very busy.
Yeah,
So
Madam
just
Mayor, we
let
were
them
just
have
having
some time.
We were just having that discussion today. How much time do we actually give them? So
Yeah,
we will definitely give them a significant amount of time at this point.
Okay.
Is there a way that we could do similar to like a Bayport cleanup day where we pool, maybe 100 residents have trees taken down and we come to save a tree or one of these operations and
They
say,
just go zip, zip,
could
zip.
we schedule something for January or whenever and maybe it is quite expensive to have a tree taken down. But it might be a way to give the residents a little bit of a break. I don't know if it's worth checking into that or.
Yeah, I don't.
Just have for thoughts on that.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I do like that idea. I worry about us leading that at that point, especially if it's not some type of disaster or something like that, although EAB could be considered a disaster. Maybe Simon and I will touch base with BJ Haynes and St. Grace Save a Tree on some type of promotion where you can call or something like that.
It would make sense for them too.
It would absolutely make sense, right? Yep.
Well, we did get a postcard that said something about how you could get your emerald ash borer tree treated, I think, right? Or-
Yep, so we, sorry, Simon, taking
Oh,
over your report. So we, every year, usually we contract with Rainbow Tree Care, who has been treating our ash trees since 2021 on a bi-yearly basis. And they offer promotion to city residents, a fairly good one, not the break that the city gets, but a fairly good break on their usual pricing, because what happens is usually when they're in town to do the city trees, they'll attempt to do the private trees also. So.
Okay. And on the tree note, now is a really good time to donate a tree. If you've been looking for something you'd like to donate to the city in memory of your loved one or something like that, we could use some donations for all those trees we're going to be replacing.
I met with a resident
I know you
this
met
morning.
with Steve Schneckenberg. I got him hooked up because he wanted to do something, and so
Yep.
this was perfect
And
timing.
we decided on a place that we just so happened to lose a tree in the last windstorm.
Exactly.
So it'll be perfect.
Right by his wife's bench.
Bench,
in
yep.
in the
So
park.
is that how a person would do that? Reach out to the city?
So they'll take advantage of the pricing that we get through these bids, which is, I would say it's not a significant savings, but it certainly helps. And then it comes with warranty, and it comes with watering, and it comes with root stimulator. And then the city will be happy to add that to our watering schedule. As you can see, the green bags around all the new trees in town. We do have somebody once a week going around filling those bags. So it certainly helps.
Great.
Thanks.
That was productive.
Look at all the stuff we're getting done. Okay, anything else for Simon? No? All right, what else do we have?
Just my
Matt's.
report, Madam Mayor.
I was talking about Matt.
Sarah and I shared a report this month. We did a fair amount of stuff together. Well, she didn't help with the budget, but she helped me out with other things. We had a workshop meeting on the preliminary budget, which took up probably 75% of the time. I think we had a very good meeting and came to some good conclusions. And we'll be waiting on the county to provide some more data so that we have a better idea of what the impact is on our current residents. The other tidbit that I have, really just those two things, is the Eco Haven development on the Anderson property, which is just south of the city fire hall. The Andersons have withdrew their annexation request, essentially no longer moving forward with that development. I will say that it's likely that the property owner is already meeting with other developers who are already interested in doing some other type of development, likely similar to the proposed development, but maybe not the eco-friendly version, but similar in size would be my guess. So I would expect that here in the next couple months, maybe even before 2024 rolls through, that we might have a new concept plan in for that property.
Yeah, that's one of the residents that I was talking to as well. It's one of the Andersons, and she is hoping to do something eco-friendly if she can find the right company to do it. So, but yeah, it sounds like another planned unit development in there or similar, so they can use some of the same plans that they've already got put together. So, that's it, right? Anyone have any other announcements?
I'll move to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, thanks, Ethan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks. We are adjourned.